so that they don't shade each other and they look more natural. So depending on how perfectly you do this, you can, again, you can make the tree look really, really artificial, okay? So how does it, if you do this, it looks artificial. If you do this, then it looks a bit more natural, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing the pad shape itself, was in my hand all the time. So when you're doing the pad shape, if you see the tree from the side, which is your front here, if you see it from the side, it should come down, be horizontal, and then the tips go out a little bit. So it's convex on the bottom, and if you want to make it look natural, it should be rounded, fluffy, and puffy on the top. So rounded on the bottom, rounded on the top. There's other ways of doing pads in bonsai. We can make them flat on the bottom, rounded on the top. Some people make them, actually, some people make them like this. Convex on the bottom, rounded on the top. It doesn't look as natural to me. Some people make them rounded on the bottom, and just from, I would say, pruning, they make them really flat on the top. So I don't like these, I like this one. I mean, it's everybody's choice whether you want pads to look, one way or the other. Now, this is from the side view. From the top view, you want these guys spreading out, right?
Ramification.
Yeah. So this is your outside line, and then you'll have your inside line of shoots in between, not right on top, but in between. And as the tree ramifies and becomes denser, you can have a third line of inside shoots. So I'm just gonna adjust the shoots here and see how the pad, comes to shape. Hopefully it will. I think we have enough foliage to make a nice pad out of this. So this is a filler shoot, right? I want to save it. I don't want to cut it off. Now this is interesting because this can work as a filler pad. You see that it's coming from the back, but now we're getting some volume on this.
Yes.
So I will work on spreading out these guys on the back. And the more you spread out your shoots, the bigger the impression the pad makes. If you clump them together, you see a small pad. If you spread them out, you get a bigger, more massive, more powerful pad.
That's good.
Thank you. I get the approval
It's a good
of the experienced member.
Yeah.
That's important.
It's a good thing you wired all of that, boy.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work. You don't want to see me wire for 2 hours. But, well, actually 1.5. Okay, so we have something that's very interesting here. Where does this tree flow?
It's flowing this.
It's flowing this way. Why? Because most of the jin, the strong jin, are flowing in this direction. The main, what we call the tachiagari, the main movement, the first movement of the tree is to the left, right? Now we have this pesky jin here. After we've done the branches, probably we'll try to bend this jin
This one.
to make it flow this way, make the whole tree consistent, okay? But we have what we call a sashieda, or a key branch. Normally, the way we style trees at my teacher's nursery, we will style the key branch consistent with the movement of the tree, and then the head of the tree, we will style it consistent with that direction. meaning that we'll have a dynamic tree.
Right, right.
So a tree that's dynamic, it moves out of the pot. It has a clear direction. So you have a tree that leans in one direction, the head moves in one direction, and the key branch moves in one direction. And all of a sudden the tree feels like it's reaching out to light.
Right.
It's moving, to open space. You can also have a more balanced design. And that's typical bonsai, right? You have the head in one direction, right? Sorry, the tilt of the tree in one direction. Then the head comes back and one of the main branches comes back to balance it out, right? Sorry, actually the head will flow in the opposite direction. How do we make the flow of the head? How do we work with that? Pretty much I think of a biker's helmet. You have a steep end and a shallow end. If the steep end is on the right, then the head is moving right. If the steep end is on the left, then the head is moving left. Also, you can make perfectly balanced apex, right? Though I consider this to be much more static, so I was taught to build trees that have more dynamic apexes, okay? If the tree is straight and it's a broom, you're not gonna make a dynamic apex because it's gonna look unbalanced. You're gonna make a balanced apex. So, then we have also, I'm gonna erase this, the other option is to make your tree tense.
So that's like the opposite of a windswept, that you have the big area leaning towards the.
Yes,
the
you have
motion.
the lean. It would kind of be like you have the windswept, everything's flowing in one direction.
Right.
Then you have a tree leaning into the wind, but
Uh-huh.
everything flowing in the opposite
Uh-huh.
direction. That would be balanced design. And then you have tense design, which is you have a key branch in one direction, right? But then the head of the tree comes opposite.
Oh.
So you have lean on one side, branch on one side, and then the tree kind of goes like this.
Yeah.
And it gives you like this impression that there's something wrong with this tree, it must have some kind of neck pain or something. So the way that we style it at my teacher's place is we make dynamic trees. Some nurseries make tense trees, some nurseries make balanced trees. So this is just choice, it's just different nuances to each nursery's style. So people think that Japanese bonsai is very uniform. I would beg to digress on that. It's not as uniform as you would think. Each nursery has its own little quirks in style.
Now, Juan, if you're making the lower branch, then your main branch, and
Yes.
it's reaching out to the left here, then do you go ahead and eventually, at some point, the growth on the other side would be shorter, pulled in a little bit compared to what's going out
Yes, yes.
to the other opposite side?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
We don't have to be done right at noon if you're watching the
okay,
clock.
okay, good.
We're still.
So I can make it look pretty.
We're pretty
That's fine.
flexible here.
We still need time to do the brass boat.
Yeah,
We can do without the show and tell, but the brass boat.
well, we'll take as much time as we can.
Thank you.
We'll steal it from the rec center.
So what I'm trying to do here is just spread branches
Yeah.
around and give them each its own space to grow out.
You're basically letting light in, right?
Yes. I'm gonna face it to you guys.
It's beautiful, really. It's just really simple.
So you notice that I'm turning the tips upward
Yeah.
slightly.
Uh-huh.
Why do we do that?
It's the way they grow.
It's the way they grow,
To reach
but
for the sun? Like
we want to
where they-
give even angles to the tips, because if one tip goes up too much, then it becomes stronger than the others. If one tip comes down, it becomes weaker than the other. So if you give each tip the same angle, they all tend to grow with the same vigor. So now we have a nice shoot here, kind of giving us some depth. This guy is not wired and it's right at the crotch, so I will remove it. This one too is right at the crotch, so we don't need it.
So when you're cutting them flush or just leaving a little tip?
I'm leaving a little stub
Okay.
whenever I cut. Yeah. So
Is
now I
that-
can see this guy really, really strong, right? You see this extension tip?
Yeah.
To make the tree look nice, I could cut it off, but I don't want to make the tree look nice now. I want to make it strong. If this grows, this bend will set faster. And if the bend sets faster, then I can take off the raffia and the wire faster. So when you're doing bone work, when you're setting the initial structure of the tree, you're actually keeping the tips. You're not cutting them. You keep the tips to make the tree strong. When the tree is there and it's refined, you can start cutting the tips to get that ramification. So now I'm thinking that possibly this will be our future apex. Snap. Because that always happens with apexes, right?
Only if you really want
And then we need to bring this guy down. This will be our back branch. So we need to let this one grow. I'm bending it down because we have no depth here, right? So we want this branch, even though it's coming from high up on the tree, we want to make it come down and fill out this void, this empty space on the tree. So how do we set branches or secondary branches? We don't want secondaries emerging at right angles because they look stiff. We want secondaries emerging close angles, kind of following the movement of the main branch. And this is a theme that you repeat all over the tree. You make short angles. If you make short angles, then eventually you can start to cram in more foliage into that path. Remember that this is a curvy tree, so we don't want to just bring branches down and make them flat. We want to see some curvature to the branches. That's why I made this back branch have a little curve instead of just bringing it straight down. Now I will work with this heavy guy right here, which I think it's even heavier than this one. And I will do the same thing. I will slide down a guy wire and I will bring it down with the help of this gem.
So you're gonna bring that heavy branch back down?
Yes. 16.
If you don't, you tell a different story.
So this branch right now might be a little big, right? Because the tree is flowing in that direction.
Right, right.
So I might consider removing some of this foliage, but we'll see how the tree behaves. I leave my options open till the end, because I don't know what's going to happen. What if I bend this branch and it breaks? So I'm gonna twist a little bit.
Tommy, I think we're gonna have to sit together and do some prep work.
Okay, so I don't want to bring it down here. I want to use the stronger part of the gin. I don't want to bend on really soft wood. I want to bend on strong, stable wood. So to prevent this guy from slipping, I will put in a stop. So I'm just making an artificial gin here to prevent my guy wire from slipping.
Meaning slipping off the branch more? Is that
Off the
what
tip to the branch, off the tip of the branch.
Okay.
So you guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Because this has kind of an upward angle, there's always a danger of this slipping towards here, right?
Right.
And this is not really super strong wood. I want a guy wire to the healthy, strong
Keep
wood.
it at the stronger, yeah.
Yes.
So again, you're letting the wire bend it? No,
Yeah, the
not,
wire's pulling it down.
you're not actually pushing on it, right?
So I need somebody's help to help me tie the guy wire. It's turning right. Thank you.
Push in.
So I'm gonna try to bend it right down.
In the guy way?
Yes. Yes, please. That's it.
That good?
Okay. Yeah.
One more?
That's good. That's good. Perfect. So now we see that probably this pad is a little bit too much because it competes in height
Right.
with this guy, right? So let's see if we can bring it around. Now this is the fun part about bonsai, right? Making the style of the tree. Pretty much telling the plant, I want you to grow this way. Will you collaborate with me, please, as opposed to making it hard? Okay, now if I want to make a pad here, then I kind of sense this is too long. Now I'm thinking on this, guys, and what am I gonna do with this? It's kind of long and leggy. So on the top with junipers, it's kind of allowed for some kind of tight motion on the top because you really have to rein it in. So that's something I will try to do without, breaking and snapping the top. How do you bend something hard without breaking it? You always want to bend on the inside of a curve, and then you want the wire on the outside of that curve, supporting that curve as you bend, and you will provide support as you bend on the inside. So this is kind of the obvious position that you should use when you're bending. Okay, you support the inside and then the wire supports the outside. Is this guy something that should be out here? It kind of feels that it's too far out. So I'll try to bend it more and try to bring it to the back.
And those are all decisions and questions that you asked yourself as you work the design.
Yes.
They started with the key branch, Linda.
Yeah.
So now you see that we have a quite interesting back branch here, and it kind of fits into the line of the tree.
I
And
think
this
the
will
back
work.
branch is so important on a tree, don't you think?
Yes. We cannot see this in pictures,
I know.
but old bonsai, I would say 60 to 70% of their weight is on the back.
Yeah.
They have a lot of depth.
I
They're
think that,
definitely more sparse on the front than the back. They
I
have
think
really
that
heavy long back
is
branches.
a It took me a long time to realize so important that back branch is, because no one talks about it too much.
What were you
Making
doing?
depth for the tree.
What were you doing with the pliers?
You don't wanna see
And
that.
the
that
back
you
branch is kinda
So-
like a
tightening it up?
background
You can bring it done
of the
tomorrow.
tree.
Do it this afternoon.
So, yes, to go back to your question, I'll come back
Hope
to you
you're
in a second.
feeling up to it.
You need to design your tree as a three-dimensional thing,
Yeah,
right? As a
yeah.
three-dimensional
With the
sculpture.
back,
Not just everything, flown
No.
forward. We need depth, and definitely that's key in a bonsai. Otherwise, it's gonna look just flat. What I was doing with the wire plier, I was just grabbing the thicker number 8 gauge copper wire and just turning it, so I can turn it exactly where I want.
You're bending the branch by bending the wire.
Yes, exactly. So I was grappling the wire here, supporting it and bending it. Okay, that's what I was doing.
How long has that tree been established in that pot?
This tree, I repotted it. Actually, I got this from Weigert, so it's not something that's inaccessible. You already know the techniques to make this. It was healthy, because if you want to work on a tree, if you're going to repot it right away, you want it to be healthy. I repotted this probably as soon as I came back from Japan last year, which was around May, June. It was May. I repotted it in May. I bare rooted it. I just took it out of the pot, washed all the soil off, and put it up in lava, pumice, and expanded shale. That's what I did.
Kind of a no-no
But-
with the junipers.
But I didn't cut the roots. I just folded every fine root into this pot. And that's
Ah.
key and secret. Not
that
secret,
may
but it's
be a
just-
secret
it's
of
just key.
junipers.
Yes.
Just like juniper branches, you will cut back to a side branch. With junipers roots, you cut back to a side root. You don't shear the roots. You don't hedge the roots. You cut back strong roots and always keep a long
just
long
bundle
healthy
them.
mane of fine roots, and you fold that back into the pot.
Yeah.
So you always bare root your junipers?
Not always, but in this case I did, because the soil was just so badly decomposed that it was
Okay.
not gonna hold on for one more year.
Your goal is to keep as much roots as possible?
Yes, correct.
What's the shell that you used?
I'm sorry?
What was the shell?
Expanded shale.
You can buy that in Orlando. I don't know where we can buy it around here.
Is there something that's like about the same?
Not that I know of.
So it was pumice, lava, and expanded shale.
Yes, correct.
Is that also called the beady rock? Is that what they have down there?
I'm
They have
not
beady
sure
rock, it's
if
called beady rock. I think it's an expanded shale.
probably, there's many products that are expanded shale. It's just rock that is heated to a certain temperature, so that it expands a little bit and becomes a little bit more porous and more light.
I think that's what Weingert's is.
So this branch is going to the back, right? So I'm gonna bring it to the front,
Right.
and this guy, I'm gonna bring it to the back. So I kinda crossed them
Oh,
a
you're
little bit.
making more back branch.
Yes.
Okay.
Set it right down in place. Perfect.
So we were talking about breaks, right?
Yeah.
So I have a little break going on, but it's a good kind of break, and I want you guys to see it. It's a lengthwise break, okay? It's not a crack, it just means that the fibers, they separate, but still you have integrity, top and bottom, okay?
Okay.
So this is the kind of break I would put cut paste and a little bit of grafting tape on top.
Not so bad, huh?
Not so bad, that's the kind of break that you want on most junipers.
Be faster, George.
See, a lot of loose trees have gins in them, they're all broken branches. It's a gin tree.
It's beautiful. I love it, Ray.
Is that tree gonna go on a raffle table after you're done?
No.
I
We already
didn't-
discussed that upset when he came in.
I need more tickets.
But Juan, did you always know that you wanted that main branch to go down, or did you decide that just when you were looking at it today?
No, I just made that decision now. I just wired things up and I said, well, I think I might use all of this. So some professionals, they will make the decisions right away. Meaning I remove some live branches up in here to make some gin. And that takes a little bit of foresight, right? Or you can go the safe way. The safe way is you wire the main branch and you cut as you go. And you work your way up the tree from the lowest branch up to the apex. Some people, they make the cuts right away. That's the more kind of dangerous path, especially on a really complex tree, because you never really know if you just leave what you need, exactly what you need. You break a branch, you don't have a backup. So one way is kind of like the Kimura way. The Kimura way is just removing everything that you don't need right away and just use it. It takes a lot of confidence and foresight. The more of a kind of like the teaching way, how it's traditionally taught in Japan, is just wire the first branch, set it. Move to the second branch, set it. Move to the back branch, set it, and just work your way up to the tree.
Beautiful.
So I think you get the idea, right?
Yes.
Right now it has a pretty much balanced top. But as this grows and fills out, we can move the weight of the top from here up to here, and it would be even better. Of course, it's kind of empty on the top, but we need this to grow. As things grow, we can wire them into place and kind of start filling out this top. Do you guys have any questions on junipers or any other kind of trees?
I have a quick question on something else. I have a tree with a lot of lichen on it. It's winged elm. Do you consider that dangerous to the tree and should be removed, or is that an artist's choice?
No. Actually, lichen is preferred over moss because lichen it grows very slowly.
Right.
I don't know what kind of lichen you have,
That's a gray
but
scaly kind
typically
of thing.
lichen, they grow very, very slowly. Actually, the Japanese have a name for lichen. They call it silver moss. So they actually prefer it, and they plant it on trees, especially on black pines. Not on junipers, but they prefer it on black pines because it naturally grows on black pine bark. If deciduous have rough bark, I would say that on deciduous they tend to clean up the lichen. If the lichen is old and it shows that the tree is, aged, I would tend to keep it. I see no problem in keeping it if it, for example, makes the tree look old.
Yeah.
In this climate, what timing would you repot?
Yeah, we can talk.
So junipers, we said that you can repot them any time of the year. Let me elaborate on that. You can repot them in the winter as long as it's a soft repot. Meaning, for example, the tree will go into a show and you're changing the pot and you're not cutting roots, okay? So light repot in the winter. In the springtime, late spring would be ideal, meaning there's no frost going on at nights anymore. The temperature's stabilized. We don't have like those late frosts in the spring. We're past that. Yeah.
Right.
Nothing like that. But in springtime, you are able to cut roots if you choose to do it. You can repot in the summer, but again, light repot. Don't cut any roots. Just fold them into the pot. In the fall time, again, you can cut roots, but you cannot be as aggressive as in the spring because temperatures are coming down. As temperatures are coming down, trees are preparing for dormancy, meaning they will not regenerate the cut root mass. So ideally, late spring, early summer would be the best time. Like I told you guys, I bare rooted this tree in May of last year. It took a year for it to become healthy and make strong growing tips. It was not healthy, but I kind of recognized that the tree was starting to grow, so it just needed a repot into good soil for it to establish itself and become healthier. So normally when you repot a juniper, you leave it at least a year without touching it. so that it, you know, regains vigor, regains strength, and then we can come in and do all this, you know, crazy work without killing the tree. Okay?
Juan, do you find also, like, once you repot it, juniper roots tend to grow slow, do they not, compared to other types of plants?
Compare it to like Brazilian rain tree or hibiscus or tropic or ficus. Yes, they grow slow. I would say compared to other conifers, they can fill up a pot with roots pretty fast if you grow them right. And again, the right thing to do with juniper roots is let them dry, water them heavy. Let them dry and water them heavy. That's what they like to grow.
But what
vigorously.
tells you then, like, if you've had it in a pot for a while, and you look on the bottom, you don't see anything growing out, what tells you that it
One signal is that the tree should be solid in the pot. That means that the tree has established itself. The other signal is seeing hair roots growing up into the upper layers of soil. That's another sign of good health on trees. And if you're using organic fertilizer, for example, disposable tea bags, if you're using good quality organic, actually the roots will grow up into the tea bags and try to eat the organic.
Okay.
And that happens with junipers too.
Yeah.
Are you
So
gonna try
when
and
you
bend
see
the
that,
dead-
that's a
dead
sign.
branch there? You dead?
I said, we have time.
This one is going to cut that off.
So you were gonna try and bend the dead branch at the bottom?
If we have water, we have a little bit of water.
Oh,
We
yeah.
can get water.
I have a question on the juniper. You said that, the juniper is not to let or the Japanese don't like to have the junipers. I have a juniper that came with, will like it.
So there's a reason
I
why.
take it off, but is that correct, or?
I would say it is for one reason. Junipers are susceptible to scale.
Okay.
Sorry, not scale. I was thinking of something else. Junipers are susceptible to borers. And if you see, for example, a juniper going like dull green, the foliage doesn't have any water in it, it's very easy to know if a juniper is healthy. You cut the foliage, you feel it's cool.
Yeah.
It means that the tree is moving water. Sometimes you can see a juniper, and you cut the foliage and you're like, oh, this tree's not moving water at all. Something is going on.
Well, the tips
And-
are turning brown, so it's not getting the water.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, thank you.
I'm
So-
gonna have to repot that thing.
So for example, with borers, the problem is that they lay their eggs underneath the nice bark plates. So not every tree gets borers, but junipers, I have lost a juniper already in Florida from borers.
Yeah.
So I know that they're in my area, right? And it's this time of the year when they start getting active. It's when the adults are going around laying the eggs, right?
Okay.
So to avoid that, we clean the living. And again, we come back to Mr. Dentist Pick,
Yeah.
and we remove the flaky bark, trying to get to the orange, kind of cinnamon layer of bark. When you get to the cinnamon color, that tells you that that's the last layer of bark. That's about as deep as you want to go. And you just keep flaking and keep that layer even until you've removed all the flaky bark. Watering the tree, for example, the whole trunk, flaking off loose bark, then coming and doing it, a couple days later, you can really get the nice clean look to the living.
You don't use like a wire brush or something then, you just kind of.
No, I tend to go with
Uh-huh.
with this, just in case, because if I go with machines, I might go too deep and then I scratch a little bit of that live tissue.
Yeah.
And I just don't like to hurt the tree more than I need. Okay, so let me clean up a little bit here.
So, little kids, 4 or 5
So,
different sizes.
I don't, ideally, we would want to do this with aluminum foil. We'll see if the wood soaks up enough water that we can just steam bend it as is.
But if it doesn't, don't worry about it. Don't break it.
So we just need to let it soak in that water for the fibers to become a little more flexible, then we will heat them up with a torch. That's the torch. That's the important part. Somebody got a torch? Some people have torches.
Yeah, right, well, that's easy.
I just don't want.
Not only the beauty of them,
Yeah.
Yeah, if you see smoke, stop pushing.
And we're lucky to have them in Florida.
Welcome to Florida.
Okay, how long is it gonna take you to do this? Cause maybe we can do the raffle
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah,
that way.
definitely,
Okay.
please go ahead.
So you wanna start the raffle?